Well, the state capture inquiry continues this morning. BNP Capital Director Daniel Mahlangu will continue testifying. The commission is also expected to hear aviation-related testimony from former SAA Chief Procurement Officer Dr. Phillip Dahwa. Our reporter Mbalenhle Mthethwa has been covering this story for us. She joins us now live in studio. Mbalenhle, thank you very much for joining us. How did BNP Capital get involved with SAA?
So what we heard from the witnesses' evidence so far is that he was approached by someone we've now come to know as Dudumieni's personal advisor. We heard from previous evidence that, he was not on SAA's payroll, and yet he was involved in board decisions and all of those things. And obviously this was really irregular. But we also hear him coming up again yesterday, where this gentleman was basically, Daniel Mahlangu was basically explaining that he got communication he met up with Masoja Mngadi at a hotel, a boutique hotel in Johannesburg, where they discussed this RFI. So this was a request for information that was issued by SAA on its efforts, to secure transaction advisory services when it was trying to secure a 15 billion rand loan to consolidate its debt. So that's how he came to, know about it. And he told the commission that, at the time was of the essence, and he couldn't really do diligence on Mngadi, or even inquire as to, if he had any relationships with anyone within SAA. But what was really interesting is that even though Mngadi is the one who approaches Mahlangu with this information and asking that, they, bid for this submit a bid as a consortium with his in-trading company, he asked that his name be removed from all documentation in this bid. And obviously this was supposed to, ring alarm bells, but unfortunately this wasn't the case in Mahlangu's instance. He just removed the name, but obviously you get the sense that he wanted his name to be removed because there would be some form of a conflict of interest, because we've also heard that Mahlangu was a Nedbank employee, which Nedbank was also bidding for this particular tender.
Let's talk about the license. What about BNP Capital's FSB license?
So BNP Capital is awarded this transaction advisory service, and it's later transaction advisory service contract and it's later extended to include sourcing of funding. Now, this wouldn't have been the case had SAA been aware of the fact that their FSB license had indeed expired. But they were informed in March, at around the time they were awarded the contract for these transaction advisory services, that there of an intention by the FSB to cancel and suspend the FSB license. And basically they don't communicate this with SAA, and then later on, it's later in May suspended, and they still don't communicate this with SAA. And we heard the evidence of former SAA CFO Phumezan saying that they had not received any communication from BNP Capital alerting them about the license having been expired. And Mahlangu basically telling the commission that they did communicate it, but in an email that was written by his partner Mngadi to SAA that he was CC'd on, you get the sense that in the email, they basically say that they speak of an intention, and they don't say that the license has actually been has been suspended. And they speak of an intention by the FSB to suspend the license. And when he's pressed on this, Mahlangu, that being when he's pressed by Advocate Hofmeyer as to why they said there was an intention, and they didn't say that the license had in actual fact expired. He said that it was not their intention to mislead SAA. But it's very important to understand that, while it's interesting to see the contradiction, he's saying that they did communicate with SAA, and Phumezan testifying that, they didn't receive any form of communication from BNP Capital.
Paper trail is so key in these investigations, isn't it? So Mahlangu is likely to wrap up his testimony today. Who follows?
Okay, so Mahlangu is going to be wrapping up his testimony today, and we're just expecting to hear more relating to this, to the transaction advisory agreement that saw them get a cancellation fee of 49.9 million rand, which was basically pushed. And we heard from Phumeza Nhansi's evidence that she was under a lot of pressure to approve this cancellation fee to be paid to BNP Capital.
Right.
But going forward, we're going to be speaking to head of procurement at SAA, and we'll just be hearing about procurement processes, and if there are any procurement processes that have been flouted, as we've heard in other SOE related evidence.
Yeah. Mbalenhle, thank you very much indeed for your reporting. Appreciate it. All right. Mbalenhle Mthethwa there covering the state capture inquiry.